Hello, everybody. So, there's music going on. Sorry. All right, so we are talking about the big questions. We have a new series. This is the first week. Over the next couple weeks, we're going to talk about the big questions. So I'm just going to let you know that today I was at a college visit at UNO with my son Burke, and I got a call from Coleman, or a text message from Coleman saying that he had a fever, and he was going to try to come anyways, and I was like, that's a bad idea. So now you got me, and we didn't get home from the college visit until almost 2 o'clock, so this message has been written and memorized in 2 hours before I got here. So give me some grace. Give me some grace. The big question. So no matter how old we are, we never outgrow the need to ask questions. Right, Jace? I just found out that I have been dethroned as the oldest person at YU after 7 years by a couple of months. Jace is now the reigning champion. So anyways, yes, we always ask questions. I ask Google questions at least 3 times a day, if not 20 times a day. How old is my favorite celebrity? A map of Israel. A map of a made-up television country. Thank you, Game of Thrones. The Husker Games score. Awkward 17th century dating practices. These are my actual Google searches, no joke. I'm not even joking. So I looked back at my phone to see. So I ask my phone questions all the time. But we can't Google search every answer we're looking for, right? Well, actually we can, but we won't always get a clear answer. For example, if you Googled, are blueberries good for you? You might get 10 proven benefits of blueberries. But if you Googled, are blueberries bad for you? You could get articles like the health risks of eating blueberries. So are blueberries good for you or bad for you? That's confusing. So we're wired to look for answers, but sometimes those answers are deeper and more complicated than we thought. And that's just blueberries. So the topics of our biggest questions are more intense than blueberries. Like, why am I here? Who are my people? What am I supposed to do with my life? These questions have deep, complicated, and sometimes messy answers. For the next few weeks, we're going to spend some time discussing some big questions and hopefully become more comfortable with asking hard questions and more comfortable with each other. So the first question this week is a very churchy question. I'm sorry. What does it mean to follow Jesus? Maybe you've wondered, or maybe not. Either way, it's okay. I actually want you to write this question down on your Post-it note. Save room, you're going to write about 4 sentences, I'm guessing. 4 or 5 sentences. What does it mean to follow Jesus? So some people would say that our answer to this question changes everything about our lives. If that's true, then this is a big question. If that changes everything, that's a big question. But if you Google or YouTube or TikTok search an answer to this question, you will get 100 different answers for what that means. When there are multiple possible answers to a question, it can be confusing, like the blueberry question. But if you look up how to follow Jesus, it could tell you, you should use this kind of Bible. I don't know if you guys know this, but there are like so many different versions of the Bible, not versions, but different translations. You got the ESV and the NIV and the NLT and so, everyone has their preference. So you're supposed to use this kind of Bible, or you're supposed to play this kind of music, or real Christians dress like this, or they talk like this, or they spend their time like this. Someone once told me that it was impossible to be a Christian and a Democrat. I actually go, I like how you guys laughed. I do online school through a Christian college that's in Florida. And when I was looking it up, if you actually are a student who goes to school in person at that college, you have to sign a contract that you will not go to see R-rated movies in the movie theater. You actually have to sign a waiver that you will not go there. Luckily, they don't make the online students do that. So these are just some possible answers that you could find when you were looking for what it means to follow Jesus. So if we say the answer to this question could change everything for us, but then the answers we find online are shallow, then why should we follow Jesus at all? Does God really do anything for our lives? Maybe our social media bio looks really better. We look like we're good Christian people. Giving us a place to go on Wednesdays and Sundays, a club, if you will, or a place to hang out. Does Jesus live off to the side of your real life? Your real life. Does he live off to the side? Maybe he isn't a part of your life at all. How does following Jesus change much of anything for you? So people have been asking what it means to follow Jesus for a long time. In the gospel, which is the parts of the Bible that tell us about Jesus, these were the people who actually walked with him, we are given an insider look at what following Jesus looks like. So in Matthew 4:18 through 20, it says, "One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, 'Come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people.' And they left their nets at once, and they followed him." So back in the day, religious leaders, Jewish leaders, Pharisees, all these Sadducees, not just Jesus, they had disciples. They had people that followed them around, people who wanted to learn from them. So I don't know if you've ever had a mentor, but like you kind of follow them around. You submerge your life in theirs. So you eat meals with them, you travel with them, you go to the same things that they go to, and then you try to imitate their life, right? That's what they were doing. They were following these leaders because they wanted to be like them. And so his disciples, Jesus had disciples. And so surely Peter and Andrew wondered what made Jesus different from other teachers. And they probably wondered things like, where would following Jesus take them? And how long would they be gone? I mean, they dropped everything and they went on an adventure, and they had no idea where they were going. Like, they were like, okay, like, let's go. I don't know about you, but I would have questions. I would have follow-up questions. They left everything. They left their families. They left their jobs. They left everything to follow Jesus. For whatever reason, Andrew and Peter agreed to go with Jesus. They left their fishing nets, their careers, their identities, their community, and they followed Jesus. But notice that Jesus did not have them first pass a Bible test, or ask them how often they went to church, or if they were religious. He didn't ask around to find out how good their behavior was. You know if that guy's a good guy or not. He did not tell them that their politics excluded them. He did not tell them that they were no longer allowed to go to movies. He did not tell them that they were going to be better than other people. Jesus invited them to follow in his footsteps and do as he did, talk as he talked, and love as he loved. He invited them to go where he went so that they could be more like him. Lots of other men and women joined as they went. So I don't know if you guys know this, like a couple of years ago, there was like a big thing like WWJD, everyone had the bracelets. Like, it seems silly, but it started as a really awesome thing for people to remember, like, wait, in this moment, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do in this moment? And that's what kind of this is talking about. Like, they wanted to know what he was doing. So Jesus invited them to follow him. Fast forward 3 years, Jesus only had his ministry for 3 years, about 3 years. So throughout their time together with his disciples, they would see Jesus walk on water, heal the sick, and raise people from the dead. They would hear him speak and watch him forgive sins. They would see him arrested and sentenced to death without even putting up a fight. I want to say that again. They would see him arrested and sentenced to death, and he never stood up for himself. He never said a word. He never put up a fight. And finally, after 3 days of being dead and buried, they would see him live again. So what's also crazy is what following Jesus meant to the disciples after Jesus was gone. So Jesus, he did raise again. He walked on the earth with his people. He taught them, and then he ascended into heaven. But after that, these people were left on the earth. Peter, who he had called to follow him in the Bible passage, he eventually becomes the first leader of the church. And except for John, which was one of his disciples, every single one of Jesus' closest disciples died defending their love and their loyalty and their faith in Jesus and what he represented. Would you die for that? Is there anything you would die for? Is there anything you would say? I will die for that. I will die so that if you said no, I will say yes, and I will die for that. Is there anything? These people, they believed this so strongly, they actually died for it. Thousands of years later, we are still reading these stories, learning from them, and even naming our children after these people. I don't know if you know anybody named Andrew or Peter or even Simon. I do. When Jesus asked them to follow, they had no idea what they would do and who they would become, but God knew. God had a life in mind for them that was bigger than the life they were currently living. Jesus had more in mind for their lives in the areas that mattered most. And in the same way, Jesus has more in mind for our lives in the areas that matter the most. Think about the areas that matter the most in your life. Jesus loved them and served them. He loved them and he served them, and he loves you, and he served you when he died on the cross for you. So following Jesus is not about religion and a bunch of rules. It isn't about a social media aesthetic. The disciples just had to commit one day at a time, one step at a time to following Jesus and his example. What would Jesus do, right? And in doing that, they began to live out what following Jesus meant. Following Jesus is a personal experience. This is important, and you do not have to write this on your Post-it note, but this is an important thing. Following Jesus is a personal experience, a life-changing encounter, and a journey that leads to a richer, deeper, more fully human life. Do you want to be more human? I want to be more human. I want to be fully human. And following Jesus will give you that. When you really understand who Jesus is, it changes everything. So what can we do now, whether you are already following Jesus or you're just thinking about it? So this is where I want you to write on your Post-it note. Number 1, start reimagining what following Jesus looks like. Start reimagining what following Jesus looks like. I really like this because I don't know about you. Raise your hand if you have some preconceived notions about what Christians look like, what following Jesus looks like, right? You get to reimagine that for yourself, because I have been to places where I've seen people love Jesus, and they definitely did not look like me, and they definitely didn't look like people that I thought loved Jesus, but they love Jesus just as much as I did. So you get to reimagine what following Jesus looks like. Consider asking yourself a few of these things. Has my view of following Jesus become too small? Have I reduced it to a bunch of rules, a list of to-dos and don'ts? What if it's bigger than that? What if following Jesus is actually an adventure? What if it's life-changing? What if it's the friendship that you've always wanted? Reimagine it, write it down, draw it out, visualize it in a new way. Number 2, write this one down. Take a step. Take a step. Follow the example of Andrew and Peter. They simply took a step to follow Jesus. They left their nets. They didn't know what would happen with their lives. They just trusted Jesus enough to take the next step. So what would a step look like for you? Don't overwhelm yourself with all the steps to get 3 or 4 years down the road. Start with just one single step. Maybe you could have a conversation with your small group leader or another adult you trust about what's going on in your life. Maybe it's showing up at YU more consistently, or engaging with your small group, or investing in somebody in your small group. Maybe it would cost you something. I think that's important. Sometimes when we are following, it costs us something, but maybe that cost would be worth it. Identify your next step and then be bold enough to take it. A side note, Lexi said that tomorrow night is First Thursday. That's a great step to make, to show up here. And I don't know if you guys know this, but tomorrow is Bring Your Bible to School Day. There's a great little step you can take. Take your Bible to school. Read it during study hall. That's a great little step to take. That's a national thing, too. Everybody across the country will be taking their Bibles to school tomorrow. So, number 3, think about these. You can write these 3 questions down. Think about these 3 questions. Who am I? Where do I fit in? And can I make a difference? Who am I? Where do I fit in? And can I make a difference? Over the next few weeks, we're going to look at and dig into these very questions. Following Jesus can help us as we learn to answer these questions. Jesus isn't just a separate category in our lives. He is part of figuring this stuff out. Invite Jesus into the process. See what Jesus has to say about your biggest questions you have about yourself. You may be surprised by what you discover. So spend some time thinking about those questions. Jesus had more in mind for our lives in the areas that matter the most. So what if we could see that following Jesus is life-changing? What if we quit seeing it as a list of religious rules and start seeing it as bigger than that? And what if we trusted that following Jesus can help us answer our biggest questions? We have no idea where that journey will take us, but neither did Andrew and Peter, and it took them places beyond what they could ever imagine. And I can tell you from personal experience, I did not grow up knowing Jesus. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I did not know Jesus until I was an adult, and it has been the best adventure of my life, and I don't have a single regret about that. So not one single regret about giving my life to Jesus. We have a small video to show you, just to kind of give an example of this. It's really short, and then we're going to go to small groups. So go ahead.
Before I made the decision to follow Jesus, I thought it would be not very fun, constraining, and I wouldn't be good enough anyway. But since I've followed Jesus, I've found that it's just completely opposite of that. And additional perks are that no matter what situation I face, I have peace and happiness. I'm able to love and forgive others despite what they've done to me. And the greatest perk of all is when I die, I know where I'm going and will have eternal life in the most happiest place ever.